in Congress, it looked like when you pump gas. Now the numbers changed so fast you couldn't see. They didn't go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They went. So the aye votes nay. 1, 2. I think there were 4 opposed to the ADA out of, what is it, 357 members of Congress. Really remarkable that it passed. Then fast forward to July 26, 1989, for the signing of the ADA. Another person on the board was John McCain. He was still senator from Arizona. There are always 2 congressmen and 1 senator on the board. He was the senator on the board. So he came to Gallaudet, picked me and my wife up the morning of the signing, and then he drove us to the White House. So, when the White House, you have to go through these different levels of security and wait in line. Not me, I drove right up the front door of the White House. And then he and my wife, went into the Oval Office and talked briefly with George H.W. Bush. And still very small, nice experience. Then we went out into the South Lawn. Wow. Sunny, beautiful day. Thousands and thousands of people there, just jam-packed with people. Many with disabilities. Many people with disabilities. And you saw the signing ceremony on the stage for people with disabilities with the president. So it was just remarkable. It was, I believe, that's, everybody there believed. It was really a life-changing event for the people who were there and a country-changing event for the United States. The ADA has really changed the United States. Thank you for asking me that. Thank you.
The next question. I know you all had some questions the other day. John.
First of all, thank you for coming out. My name is John Bone. I'm the communications manager for the agency. This is kind of a follow-up, but in watching the movie, there was obviously a lot of backlash from the powers that be, and there was some civil disobedience. People were getting arrested. So my question is, did you have doubts? Were you afraid for those that were getting arrested? And how did you get past that?
That's really a good question. Protest was new to me. I didn't know anything about protest, but the time when the people who don't walk and use wheelchairs or electric wheelchairs crawled up the steps of the U.S. Congress building. Oh my gosh, that was so moving. And instead of messing things up, it really got positive attention. Not from everybody. Some people thought it was pathetic that these people were using their disability in that way, and I didn't. I thought, good for them that they had the courage to do that, to show without support, without a law that mandates access, how can we get into buildings? We can't. You want proof? You want proof that we can't get into buildings? Here it is. And that was really amazing. I tend to say that what happened at Gallaudet was more like a revolution than a protest, because it really wasn't, it was an act of civil disobedience, but very quickly The only people who were opposed to it were people on the Board of Trustees. When they closed down Gallaudet's campus, people who would drive past with bullhorn and neighbors around Gallaudet had signs on their houses supporting a deaf president. It was just remarkable. So it changed the way people think about deafness, and it changed the way people think about disability. It would never have happened without that initial protest. Yesterday I told a story about the first day of the protest. It started Sunday night. Man, I'm sorry if I go on, but
You're good. You're great
it
on
was
time.
Sunday night. Okay, the board had narrowed down the finalists to 3, and 2 of us were deaf, and one was a woman who was chancellor at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro, who didn't know fingerspelling or signs or anything about deafness. Her claim to knowledge was that she was a nurse. Now she's my good friend. I like her a lot. She likes me a lot. But back then, she was not my good friend or a good friend of Gallaudet. But now it's down to 3. 2 deaf, 1 hearing. Everybody expected one of the deaf people would be picked. Everybody knew that one of the deaf people would be picked because the campus had rallied, important, not protested, but rallied for a deaf president for months. And then the board met, voted, and they elected the woman. Then they kept quiet until Sunday night. So they thought, soon the students won't be any problem, we'll announce it on Sunday night. And they announced it in a press release on paper. They didn't have anybody stand up and talk to the students or anything. They had staff people come into campus and hand out a paper. And the paper said, Gallaudet University appoints first woman president in history. So, of course, the campus, about that, they were really upset. And some of the campus leaders decided we should march to the hotel where the board is staying. So they started right out the front gate. That's Busy Road in Washington, D.C. It's called Florida Avenue. It's busy, 4 lanes, a lot of traffic on that road. So the police came right away. And in Washington, D.C., protest is very common. So the police, they know how to deal with protesters. So they came, they opened their trunk, they pulled out bullhorns. And they said, okay, you people stop, in their bullhorns. And, of course, students, they just kept marching. And to their credit, thank the interpreters, because the interpreters all pretended they were deaf too. So, people were asking, who can help us communicate? So the police, they knew it could be dangerous because walking in heavy traffic, so the police put a car in front and a car in back with their flashing lights on. And instead of stopping the march, they gave it a police escort. So that whole week, everybody outside deafness supported what was going on. People who didn't know, who had never seen the name Gallaudet before, supported what was going on. Gallaudet was on the front page of the New York Times 4 days that week. God, it was on the front page of the Washington Post all 7 days that week. God, that was on ABC, nightly news, every day. It was big, big, and positive story. People like Senator Dole, he said, what's the board thinking? You know, what's wrong with these people? They have a qualified deaf person to lead a deaf university? What's wrong with them? Jesse Jackson said, it's not that deaf people can't hear, it's that the board can't listen. And there was all kinds of things like that. So it was positive, 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 positive. And it was a social movement. So a protest became a social and civil rights movement. But it had to start with a protest. It had to start, the ADA protests had to be graphic and strong, and people had to see them and say, oh my God, I never really thought that if you use a wheelchair, it's impossible for you to get into a building. Never thought of that. And how would they think of it? Because people had the courage and initiative to do it. Oh, that was a long answer. I'm sorry.
Another question. Yes, I'm coming over right here, right behind you.
All of that was wonderful and historic, but there's still work to be done. What do you think is the next thing that the disabled need to fight for?
Okay, that's, again, I sound like a broken record. But what we must fight for is for people to recognize ability and not to focus on the dis in disability. And the only way that can happen is for people to get to know us better. When people with severe disabilities are placed in jobs and succeed in those jobs, then the people who work next to them say, oh, I never thought, can do this, can do that. So there's a lot left to do, a lot. And the best way to do it is to put people with disabilities in the regular workplace all over the country. Every time somebody with a disability, every time somebody without a disability gets to know, really know somebody with a disability, then their attitude changes. So one person with a disability in an office can impact that whole office and that whole workforce. There are amazing things happening in industry now, partly because of the law and partly because some of the industry leaders have good attitudes, but amazing hiring of people with disabilities and training of people with disabilities, and most important, promoting people with disabilities. So people with disabilities become supervisors of people without disabilities. That's a great thing. Meg knows a lot more about the workplace and about the job enhancements and things like that, but it's not really a law, it's regulation, right? The OCCP regulates 7%, you know that probably better than I do, but now companies of more than 50 people are required to have at least 7% of their workforce be people with disabilities. And the good thing is that for big companies, that requirement isn't just for entry level, it's for all the different levels of employment. So they have to hire people who are supervisors. And that's really what will change the world. You learn to know somebody with a disability, then it helps. Thank you.
Another question. Who has the next question? Yes.
My question relates to technology and how you, from your point of view, would like to see technology to meet the needs of deaf and hard of hearing in the concept of universal design. What would you advocate for specifically?
So I love the concept of universal design. And at Gallaudet, for example, when I was still president, the woman who was my provost, who there was another protest at Gallaudet in 2006 because some people don't like her, but I like her. The woman who was provost came up with the idea of deaf space. So, in brief, the idea of deaf space is to design buildings that help deaf people be able to navigate the building and communicate. So, for example, new buildings at Gallaudet don't have sharp corners. That's really simple concept, no sharp corners. But now they curve. So that means people stay in your site for a longer time. So instead of disappearing, they go like that so you can get somebody's attention. They have a lot of glass. Elevators are glass. They have balconies, so you can see people from the second floor down on the first floor and talk with them. That was designed for deaf people, deaf space. But everybody who comes to campus who's not deaf loves that design. They really love the design. I travel a lot, so I eat in restaurants a lot. And when something like now, the Olympics is happening, I can go into restaurants and see captioning on TV. That captioning doesn't help just me, but they can have, in sports bars, for example, they have 3, 4, 5 different games on, so they turn off the sound. And even hearing people use those captions. I talked about CART. When a meeting has CART, there's one deaf person in the room, one. So the business supplies CART for that deaf person. Then when the meeting is over, have a transcript of the meeting. You can give to everybody. So somebody missed the meeting, maybe was sick or something, has a transcript. So that's a great example of universal design, where captioning was provided for people who are deaf or hard of hearing, but it benefits everybody. Curb cuts, simple example. The bicycle riders make a lot more use of curb cuts than wheelchair users do. But now you have to have curb cuts everywhere. Yeah. So I like universal design, but again, I'm not an expert on it. So I like the concept a lot.
Other questions? I know we have folks who have some burning questions. We came up with some that looks like we've rotated through some of them. Jess, you have a question?
Hi, I'm Jess Stewart. I'm a transition counselor in the Savannah office. My question to you is just, there are a lot of really passionate and ambitious people in this room, so if you could just give us all one charge leaving here today to continue and reawaken the revolution that you played a hand in so many years ago, what would that charge be? What's the one thing that we can do to keep that motivation and keep that momentum going.
Well, I'm really happy you asked me that question. Wow. One thing, keep your passion. Even though you will experience many frustrations, don't let the frustrations bother you. Keep your passion. Know that you're right. Know that your belief in the abilities of people with disabilities is the right thing. And you're going to meet people who don't believe the same things. And those people might sometimes be your supervisors. Or they might be employers who you have to work with. And they don't have the same belief. Don't bend. Don't weaken. I won't even use the word give up. No. Don't just keep on going. Hold to your belief and your knowledge that every single person with a disability has ability. Every single person with a disability can work. Sometimes it might be hard, challenging. Often it might be hard and challenging to find the right place for that person to have a productive job, but everyone can work. You believe it. Hold that belief. Thank you. Thank you.
Question here?
Dr. Jordan, when I watched the video, Lives Worth Living, I loved your description of the whole movement in the moment when the ADA passed. You said it was a PA moment. Have you had any other PA moments in your life you'd like to tell us about?
Oh, that's the power moment for sure. But yeah, a lot of power moments in my life. Yeah, many. Too many to list. Probably the earliest power moment was when I was named president. I was in Baltimore, picking up a friend at the airport, and my friend's hearing. He flew in to visit from California, and we were walking to Hertz car rental place, and there was an announcement, my name. He said, they just announced your name. So we went into Hertz and called, and it seemed that the chairman of the Board of Trustees was calling me. On TTY, that's, 1988, TTY. So I didn't have a TTY there. And he didn't want to talk to my friend. So I agreed to call him back when I got home. So I called, I said the chairman of the board, that's another story. Wow, I'm sorry, I got story. But the board chair was a woman who really very strongly supported hiring Dr. Zinsser, the hearing person. And when they went through the whole mess and debate and vote and revote, she stepped down. So they elected a new chair. And the new chair was my friend, and a deaf man.